Good morning. I'm going to call the meeting of the December 20th Board of Commissioners to order. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Roll call, beginning with myself. Commissioner Koss, I am here. Commissioner Smith?
I am here.
Commissioner Stephen?
I'm here by telephone.
Commissioner Culbertson?
Here.
And Commissioner Mike Smith?
Here.
We are all present and accounted for. We have no public comment today, so we're going to open our meeting in administrative business with a video.
Commissioners, I believe this is the video you requested last week from the Kansas Association of Counties that discusses the local ad valorem tax relief.
The tale of LAVTR.
We have
Our
better
story
sound.
starts during the Great Depression, 1937 to be exact. Jobs are few. The national economy is in the tank and has been for the better part of the past 8 years. All of America is feeling the pinch of a lagging economy. Kansas has been hit especially hard. The Dust Bowl era has left farmers struggling, and there is a certain uneasiness across the rest of the state because of the national economy.
See if you can hold the mic
Local
against
governments,
you.
particularly those that depend on agriculture, are feeling the pressure. Even in the throes of the Great Depression, counties must still administer elections, record deeds, build and maintain roads, and protect the peace. Likewise, they are mandated to collect property taxes, not just for the county, but for all levels of government. The state of Kansas, however, does have one thing going for it despite the depression and the drought. Sales taxes are recovering. In fact, there is a surplus. And to help local governments ease the property tax burden during this economic struggle, the state legislature introduced a concept that would send excess sales tax dollars to counties to both stabilize and lower the local property taxes. And thus the concept of the local ad valorem tax reduction, or LAVTR, was born. This concept was memorialized statutorily in 1965 in KSA 79-2959 by transferring a percentage of the total state sales and compensating using tax, as well as the local share of cigarette stamp taxes and cereal malt beverage taxes to local governments. Considered a demand transfer, 2 payments were made, January 15th and July 15th, based on the formula set in statute. 65% is distributed based on population, 35% is distributed based on property tax valuations. In the 1970s, other revenue sources to help ease the property tax burden at the local level are introduced. The state takes over collecting revenue from liquor by the drink and other taxes. In exchange, the state agrees to return those funds to the county in the form of various state aid, including LAVTR and the County and City Revenue Sharing Funds, or CCRS. All throughout the 1990s, the state tinkers with the amounts that they send to the counties, sometimes adjusting it up and sometimes going down. In 2001, the amount for distribution in the fiscal year 2002 was set at $27.34 million. In 2002, the amount for distribution in the fiscal year 2003 was set at $26.24 million, less than half of what it was supposed to be. And then the following year, something happened. Welcome to the year 2003. The Kansas legislature voted last year to make a single payment to the LAVTR fund, as well as the County City Revenue Sharing Fund. Those single payments come out to less than half of the statutorily required calculation, but the legislature amended the law to make things work. Then, during the 2004 session, the legislature opted to extend a moratorium on LAVTR payments through the 2005 fiscal year. The 2005 Kansas legislature doubled up, avoiding payments in the 2006 and 2007 fiscal years. And with that, LAVTR was gone. As a result of these actions, between 2001 and 2022, Kansas counties have lost over $1.7 billion in revenue from LAVTR alone. Likewise, they have lost an additional $1.3 billion in CCRS funding and over $400 million in transfers to the County City Highway Fund. In total, over $3.5 billion in revenue that was to be provided by the state has disappeared. Revenue that has been made up at the local level mostly through property tax increases. Fast forward to today and welcome to 2023. It's been 20 years since LAVTR was last funded. However, on March 28, 2023, LAVTR was openly and readily debated on the Kansas House floor as a potential budget amendment to the 2024 state budget. Today's proposed amendment would fully fund LAVTR for the first time since 2000. Today's vote is not about the myths of what LAVTR is or is not. Instead, it is about true property tax relief, and everyone wants property tax relief. Right now, the House is debating the budget, and that debate has brought forward several amendments. The amendment to fully fund LAVTR for the first time in over 20 years proposed by the House Minority Leader not only passes, but passes decisively by a vote of 83-40, with a mixture of Democrats and Republicans voting for the measure from urban, suburban, and rural areas. The amendment enjoys wide support. So why, ultimately, did LAVTR not get included in the budget? It comes down to leadership support. None of the House Majority Party leaders supported the amendment, and there is little momentum in the Senate to move LAVTR funding forward. This narrative must change. It is time that concerned citizens send a message to elected officials advocating for true property tax assistance. But how? First, by leading the discussion. Most Kansans don't know what LAVTR is. They have no reason to know since it essentially has not existed for 2 decades. So we must talk about LAVTR and make it more than just alphabet soup to the average Kansan. Next, we need to educate. In essence, when LAVTR dollars are not returned to the county, we as taxpayers are paying the same tax twice. Once in the store when we purchase the goods, and then again to the county through property tax collections. However, we must be honest about the expectations of LAVTR. It is not a silver bullet that will magically save individual Kansans hundreds of dollars in property tax. However, it will reduce the county and city budget dollars that they can collect dollar for dollar. Finally, become an advocate. We must advocate for why county government should receive LAVTR funds. The purpose of LAVTR is not to fund local government. The purpose is to help offset the property tax burden. Remember, the original purpose of LAVTR, to bring stability and help lower the property tax collections. And advocating for LAVTR means explaining how your county will benefit from the funding to reduce the property tax burden. The journey away from LAVTR took 20 years. We don't know how long the journey back may take, but it is a journey worth making. If you have questions or want to learn more about LAVTR, feel free to reach out to KAC and be sure to check out our website for more tools to help tell your LAVTR story.
Thought the interesting was the $1.7 billion that's been withheld from cities and counties, and the state's holding on to how much? 3-point-some billion?
With a B.
With a B. So over half of what they're holding should have been turned back to the cities and the counties. So, and that would have lowered your property tax.
So the problem we have right now getting the LAVTR approved is the leadership in Topeka.
Yep.
Somehow we've got to change that.
Yep.
But they need to stop making false claims about how long this has been withheld.
Yeah, last night at the City of Leavenworth meeting, it was reported that they only paid LAVTR for 1 year. So the misinformation out there is rampant.
Well, you and I both worked here, so is Commissioner Smith, and so is Commissioner Cos. We're all involved in budgets that got impacted by when they stopped paying it.
Yep.
Even when they first cut it in half.
Yeah.
You know, we all remember that. There's 4 of us up here that were actually involved with it,
And with
and we're
all
still
that-
here. That's why we,
Yep.
been pushing for this.
I had my job eliminated because of it.
I was there.
Yes.
So.
Commissioners, I think good point that, there are those who put the misinformation out there, but videos like this, all of that data that's in there is verifiable. It's not made up. You can go back and verify every one of those bullet points that they bring out. And we've lived through it. If you've been, involved in government in any way since 2002, 2003, you lived through it. So, but all that information is verifiable. Unlike the rhetoric that's spewed by some people in Topeka, it is verifiable, and it absolutely impacts us. And I just wanted to, one of the I think it was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we had a legislative breakfast, and one of our local senators at the time asked former Commissioner Chad Shimke, well, can you guarantee me that this is going to reduce my taxes? And his comment was, well, I can guarantee you that all that money will be spent in Leavenworth County. And that was his point, is it's money that should be coming here, and it's money that should be spent here, not redistributed to other counties in the state by the legislators in Topeka.
That's why I thought it was so important to show that video, and if anyone else would like to watch it again, it's on the Kansas Association of Counties website, LAVTR. There's 3 videos, I think. 3 or 4.
They're also
link it
linked
to
in
ours?
our YouTube,
Right.
and also we shared them on Facebook.
Yeah.
There's 3 different videos that discuss this and give a lot more information. But I know they talk about some numbers that may be hard for people to get their head around when we're talking about $1.3 billion or whatever. But we've done the math for Leavenworth County, and just for Leavenworth County, it's over $80 million. I mean, that's significant. That's a lot of
bridges.
8 bridges.
That's what I was going to
a lot,
say.
lot of
Right
bridges, a lot of blacktop roads, whatever, you name it. It's money that should have been spent in Leavenworth County. And despite what some may say as to why they took it away, that it wasn't actually reducing property taxes, the real truth is that they had budget
That's right.
shortfalls, and rather than them raise taxes at the state level, they forced the counties and cities to raise taxes by removing
Covering it up.
LAVTR and taking the money away from us.
Yep.
That was really what happened, and I think if you can have access to newspapers back then, you can probably go read about it.
Right. And we still need to remind our legislators that rather than depending, and I'm sorry, this may not be popular again, rather than relying on the Kansas Policy Institute to provide them with data and information, they need to count on the people at the state of Kansas level that are actually the experts on how our budgets operate, what revenue is coming in, what revenue is going out, and how it's spent. I mean,
Yep. And basically, that's the 80 bridges that we're behind. $80 million would be 80 bridges. So
It'd probably be a lot more because back then,
Yeah,
Bridges didn't
that's
cost
true,
that
too.
much. We probably would have had 100 of them replaced.
but that's why I brought up at the meeting last night. They said that they only paid LAVTR for 1 year. It's like, that's easy to find information to prove. It was paid every year from
Right.
the
65.
50s. Yeah.
1965.
Yeah, every year up
2003.
until 2003.
and then it was
So,
eliminated, or they began to reduce it because there was the shortfall in the budget, and that is verifiable that there was a shortfall in the budget. So, okay, well, thank you for getting that up for us to have the public review. Now we can move on to the consent, if there's nothing else administratively.
If not, Madam Chair, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Again, voting place of.
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
I just wanted to say one thing. I did talk to a legislative leader yesterday, and they said that this LAVTR is likely going to have a hearing in the Senate on January 11th. So if people want to put that on their calendar, January 11th, we definitely should have people
Absolutely.
focused on the issue there.
Yep.
But there's, property taxes is such a big puzzle, but this is definitely one piece.
Yep. I don't have anything.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. If there's no further discussion, begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. We are now to formal board action. We need to consider a motion to allow apportionment of reimbursed funds from the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services for incarcerated individuals awaiting court-ordered competency evaluations.
Morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Sheriff.
Morning.
Go ahead.
So, in July of this year, Senate Bill 228 became law, and essentially what that law directs KDADS, the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services, to do is to reimburse counties for the costs associated with holding individuals who are in custody and awaiting some type of evaluation or treatment that will restore them to competency in order to stand trial. This action came about because of moratoriums put in place by KDADS, largely for Osawatomie State Hospital and Lauder State Hospital, which really reduced the amount of people that could be sent for evaluation. This has caused a backlog across the state. One of the intents, I believe, of this law was to essentially force the hand of KDADS to come up with other solutions, which my understanding is that they are working on capacity levels at the current hospitals and looking at other institutions, as well as developing other means for evaluations, which include coming to the local jails to do evaluations. The action called for KDADS to reimburse the counties $100 per day that they were waiting for treatment. So, in following the formula that they have set forth for applying for reimbursement, we have done so, and that reflects 4,670 days of incarceration, and that only goes back to from July 1st of 2022 to the first and second quarters of this year. So this isn't even the entire year of 2023. So the amount of reimbursement that we've sought and have been approved for is $467,000. The language of the bill states that reimbursement shall go back to the county general fund, not the sheriff's office specifically, although that's where the expense was garnered. There have been some agreements with other counties and throughout the state of Kansas that there be a cost sharing or a profit sharing approach to this, to where the sheriff would receive an amount of that in order to pay for expenses in the jail. I think that's a fair program, and so in this case, I'm requesting minimum 15% of that $467,000. Those funds would be redirected to either my equipment reserve or other appropriate fund, and would apply to infrastructure needs within the jail, security needs, and inmate welfare. This is a program that will not live forever as they create more bed space. The amount of days will decrease. However, I currently have 9 individuals that are still waiting for bed space. So I know that for the considerable future, we'll still be housing individuals. However, I don't ever foresee a reimbursement to this degree again. And I would also say that eventually this will come to an end, the reimbursement process. So the request that I have is that there be a sharing of that reimbursement of funds that were unplanned for, unbudgeted, almost a windfall in nature, that we receive minimum 15% of that to be applied back to expenses within the jail that based on restrictions based on previous budgets where we couldn't exceed a certain amount in request, and we haven't been able to address those issues, that this money would be addressed or applied towards those needs.
This is Commissioner Stevens.
Go ahead.
I have two questions, and Sheriff, thanks for coming in today, and thanks for everything you do for the county. We really appreciate it. How did you come up with the 15% number?
There's no specific way, no specific reason attributing the 15%, other than I felt that was a fair amount of the $467,000. That would be, $70,500. So that would leave the county general fund an additional almost $400,000. And based off of estimates for some of the security upgrades that are required in the jail, that $70,000 that I would receive would go a long way towards making those improvements.
Okay, and the second question is, you said that this reimbursement's going to end. Is this program going to end, or what did you mean by that?
So the program is designed, again, to put pressure on KDADs to end moratoriums on housing. So KDADs has actively been improving the number of beds in these facilities, as well as developing other facilities, create new facilities for inmates to go for these evaluations, in addition to creating new processes, like I said, where they'll come to the jail where they can or when they can to do the evaluation. So as these beds open up, those people who are waiting on our backlog will continue to diminish, and then there won't be a need for this.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Just one. Sheriff, incarcerated people who are on Medicaid, is Medicaid billed for this, or is this?
Medicaid is not.
Okay.
So incarcerated individuals who are receiving medication, we pay at a Medicaid rate. Or if they have a hospitalization, we pay at a Medicaid rate. But we don't receive a reimbursement from Medicaid.
Okay. Even if the individual is on Medicaid?
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot of talk about Medicaid expansion. That's not going to help you in any way?
It potentially could. Largely, our population really has no insurance or Medicaid at all. They just have fallen through the cracks completely. So there are probably a handful every year that would have Medicaid, and I quite honestly don't know if that would be something that we could receive reimbursement from Medicaid for. But the majority of their medical needs are already being covered at the Medicaid rate.
But I think, not directly impacted by, but Medicaid expansion would open up in general more beds to eligible people in the population at large, which would in turn increase the number of beds that would be available to incarcerated individuals to receive those evaluations in the hospital, correct?
Potentially.
Potentially? Okay.
One thing I'd just like to ask, Mark, this $467,000, is this the first time that we've had any of this coming back to us? I mean, is this, I wouldn't say new money, but basically that's what it is. So it's not part of anything we've received in the past?
Yeah, well, Commissioners, this is a new program, so this is the first reimbursement that the county is receiving for these types of services. The Sheriff's Office is obviously part of the general fund, and the legislation requires that the money go back to the general fund. So, in effect, it's reimbursing the general fund for expenses that we've already incurred, not future expenses. It's a reimbursement process. So, my approach on these things is always they should be addressed during the budget. I think that the money doesn't go away. It goes into the general fund. It's not allocated for anything specifically at this point. So my preference on requests like this is, again, that we consider them as part of the budget process.
So what you're saying is that in the budget process, that Sheriff Dedeke could, at that point, ask for 15% to be dedicated?
Well, I think that the idea is that these funds come in to reimburse us for expenditures that the sheriff's office is incurring, and that we could then, during the budget process, address how the commission and the sheriff would like to utilize those funds going forward. Typically, when you get money in a year, that wasn't expected, unless it's a grant. You utilize it the next year as part of that budget process, and that would be my preference, that we handle it as part of the budget process.
Okay. So,
Well, he could come back at budget time too, and something could happen. His request coming before the board could be higher than this that's in front of us right now.
By then, we will probably have received more funds in addition to this. And I think on the question about the Medicaid expansion, I do believe there is legislation that would allow us to utilize Medicaid for reimbursement on health care related issues with prisoners. I think there was legislation that was put forward. I don't know if it passed yet or not, but I do believe I saw that earlier.
Mr. Culberson, do you have any?
Do you need us to do this now, Andy, or can you wait 3 months till budget time comes around?
My concern is the need is now for the upgrade and the security piece of it. If we tackle this at budget time, then it's 2025 at the earliest that we can address these needs that exist now.
That's the difference.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Stephen. What exactly were the needs and what was the cost?
So the biggest need is the security, which I don't want to go into too much detail, but it has to do with the CCTV part of the jail, which I believe that was put in several years after the jail opened, which was 2000. So I think 2004, 2005. And by and large, it's the same cameras that are in there. And there are some drawbacks, the disadvantages of having that equipment in there. The technology has changed quite a bit. When a piece of equipment fails, the technology has changed to the point that it doesn't marry up with the modern day technology that we try to have in place. So it's almost as talking two languages. Trying to get everything on the same digital platform, and it also will help address adding additional cameras to spaces that currently are not covered.
I understand it's not ideal, but do you see it causing any problems, Mr. Lothar?
Well, I think the request is for the $70,500 to be redirected to the equipment reserve. What's your current balance in your equipment reserve, Sheriff?
I've got an expense that will be covered this week, so after that it'll be short of $1 million. However,
so in the interim, you could cover the $70,000 for the CCT through that, and then as part of the budget, we could reimburse.
Yeah, potentially I could. However, there's no certainty that you will.
That is true.
Okay, so the cost of this improvement is, you say, the $75,000?
No, I haven't gotten an estimate on it, just based off of past dialogue with our provider. The big expense is going to be running new cable, and then the cameras themselves, through technology, have actually come down in price, but the manpower and the type of cable will be the major expense in it. I don't think $70,000 will cover the entire project, but with other funds that are in place, and then upgrades that we have performed in the last couple of years that will help us get to where we want to be.
I don't like making these kind of decisions on the fly like this, since this money just came in. I don't think necessarily we have to wait until the budget process, but I certainly think we should have a firm number on all these things before we make a decision for additional fund disbursement.
That's my opinion.
Sheriff, do you use your equipment reserve for your building maintenance?
Not necessarily for building maintenance, for replacement of different things
That'd be,
we do.
this would be equipment, not something to be building maintenance.
So we have largely used over the years our equipment reserve as a savings account for large purchases.
Mm-hmm.
Example being, we had to upgrade our radio system. We are in the process of doing that to be compliant with the standards the federal government has set in place. That comes at a cost of $745,000. Because we knew this was coming, we've been able to apportion money back for that. So that would take a good chunk of what I have in reserves. We also, as throughout the year, is if expenses come up where we lose a vehicle, where we have some type of major expense, we're able to provide funding to replace that piece of equipment. As far as building maintenance, there are upgrades that we do that we may cover through equipment reserve, but the maintenance part itself, in the jail we have our own maintenance personnel, and then for anything outside of the jail, buildings and grounds. And sometimes we'll split a cost with buildings and grounds if it's a large project.
Okay.
If it's
Yeah, but see, that's why in the 2006 sales tax it was to upgrade radios, and now that sales tax is over and on, now it's all in the budget.
Specific to Commissioner
Local
Stevens'
taxpayer.
thing is that but we could get more information and be able to have more conversation with Sheriff Dedeke about this, and do it at the like first meeting in January or early in January because this isn't urgent. It doesn't appear that we could, to satisfy Commissioner Stevens and to kind of work through the details to find out, because I don't think that it sounds as though this is an urgent. The money has been received.
I'm not 100% that we've actually received the money yet. I would have to check with the clerk on that. We know it's coming. They've sent us a notice of the amount.
Right, okay. If the money hasn't been received, just so that we know that we can kind of look at what we're talking about in a meeting maybe early in January, because that can be a thing that we do for the sheriff that has nothing to do with the budget, or we can decide that we want to move it toward the budget, correct? I'm just...
The commission can certainly take that action at any time they decide
Right.
is appropriate.
So I think that probably, in my opinion, if we just kind of get additional information so that everybody's satisfied that this is the way that, and that the money is in the bank, because one never knows what's going to happen with those types of decisions. And I would hate to make a commitment that we couldn't follow through with and have to, withdraw it because we have dedicated funding that we haven't received. That's just my...
Sounds like you're looking for a motion to table it until we get some more information. That being said, I've always been of the contention that the sheriff is an elected official. He doesn't work for us. He has his own budget, his own personnel, his own world over there. I think the regulations are backwards and haven't been updated enough. I wish all the elected officials could send out their own tax statements and cut us completely out of it. But that's not the way the rules are, and especially the school districts. But that being said, I make a motion that we table this till we get some more information.
We'll have to have a certain date.
It's not a public hearing. You just put it on the table, and the board can take it off the table at any point. And we would make sure it's an agenda item in the future.
Before we do that, let me just make one statement, if I could, Jeff. Before you do that, the sheriff's an elected position, and everyone knows in law enforcement nowadays it's a tough thing. It's a lot tougher than when I was for those 20 years, 30 years ago. And I'm not saying we table it or we wait or we don't do it. But I think when the sheriff comes in and all his years' experience and tells us that he's got some issues that he's concerned about, we really need to give it some serious thought before we push this on down the road. Just my 2 cents.
I'm just saying, 2 or 3 weeks is not an extensive amount, to make sure that the money is there, that it's available, and that we have talked about and can have more conversations about what the needs specifically are, and to dedicate any portion of these funds. That's just, but
Sure. No, I appreciate what you're saying. I do.
So I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion is second.
We're going to do this.
Could you repeat the motion? I couldn't hear the motion.
I'm sorry, the motion is to,
Table it
that
until
we're
we get
going to
more
table
information.
this until probably, I would say, the first week in January, or
I think it's just tabled until we have the information.
to table it until we have additional information and the funds are available, that we know the funds are available.
That sounds good. I would make one comment is when we have the budget year closing, so we'll also know what the carryover was from last year, and that could impact the use of funds for this as well.
Further discussion?
No.
Just that, now are you expecting the sheriff to go get like a price quote what this is going to cost to upgrade, or?
Well, there's some things you probably.
Security.
Just some
No,
things.
no, I know that.
I think
I
the less said
understand,
about
but-
security.
Right,
That's what I
well
was
said,
thinking
and
about.
I agree with that, but I want to make sure that the money is in place. I mean,
Okay.
that's my,
Okay. 'Cause I think our security and our cameras and all that are so important. We just realized that this week on a vehicle. I don't know if you watched that video.
Yeah, I did.
wow.
That
Wow.
was,
Yeah.
you
But-
got to have good cameras and security. So, anyways, all right, that's all.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? I'm voting with myself, aye.
All right.
Commissioner Stephen?
Mr. Steve, I vote aye.
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 Motion carries. And we'll see, just kind of give us some more information, and when we know that the money has been deposited by the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks, Andy.
Let's see. We need to consider a motion to approve Cypress flooring for flooring replacement to the Health Department in an amount not to exceed $59,000 through the Epidemiology and Laboratory Capacity Grant.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you today is an RFP to approve Seaford's flooring for installation and replacement of the flooring. It is 100% funded by the ELC grant that Mr. Miller had received. This is a continuation of using those funds like we did with the parking lot. We had put out an RFP to Drexel for this. We only received one company to show up at the mandatory pre-bid. We let them know that we weren't going to take a singular bid. At that point, we started getting estimates for it. That was like pulling teeth. I received estimates back. I know Jamie needed to move on this, so we are recommending the lowest estimate we received back to use the grant funding.
Local contractor.
Questions?
I don't know. I mean, we've seen the other quote.
Right. Questions? Commissioner Stephen, do you have any questions?
I just have one question on this grant is what all type improvements were authorized under this grant?
I'm not sure how Mr. Miller had the items. I know it was he can only use it for portions of the health department that were covered on it. Some areas in the health department that aren't funded by the grant were not, like, we did a painting in there with the grant, and that was not, some areas weren't painted under that grant because he can't fund it that way. The parking lot impacts the entire area, so it could be funded by it. Again, the flooring areas that we're taking care of, there will be a portion of offices that we'll have to do at a later date with the flooring because this grant cannot fund those portions of it because the money doesn't directly affect that side of the health department. Jamie has multiple areas like women and children area that he has to manage, and then the health department, and then EMS. It's broken up, and it only covers a portion of it, but the direct portion that it covers, Mr. Miller or Mr. Lawfrey would be better at answering that than myself, sir.
This particular grant is targeted towards infrastructure improvement. So the facilities maintenance, basically.
Right.
All right, that's all.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I don't have any.
I move that we approve Cypress Flooring for flooring replacement to the Health Department in an amount not to exceed $59,000 through the Epidemiology and Laboratory Capacity Grant.
Second.
Motion is second. Begin voting with myself. Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens votes aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, now we need to consider a motion to contract with Reese Construction for the replacement of Bridge A60 in an amount not to exceed $325,000 after contingency for pile lengths.
Commissioners, you previously accepted the low bid from Reese Construction. We did issue a notice to proceed. They have provided us with the documents and contract that we have requested. The request before you today is for the low bid that was read of $275,552, plus the $57.64 per foot for any required H-pile abutment support in excess of 50 feet. The county crews will backfill the structure and realign the gravel road. As we discussed previously, this is a dead-end road with approximately 4 or 5 homes north of it. And so the new structure is going to be built on the east side of the existing structure. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those today. Just for conversation's sake, this is very similar to the structure that was built in Kickapoo Township a few years ago as part of the stream obstruction grant. It's basically the exact same structure as K45, almost the same exact length. It's on a bit of a skew. That structure, just for reference, was about $190,000. So as you can see, this is another bridge that has gone up in price.
Why do you think they'll need to have longer piles?
When?
Why do you think they're going to need to have a contingency for longer piling?
They may not, but this is not a full design, and so there was no geotechnical boring completed. So we just bid that length to protect the county in the future, so they couldn't come up with an arbitrary price per foot. So we had a locked-in price for the cost of the piles if they were to happen to be in excess of 50 feet. I have not built one of these bridges. This is the 8th one that I've done in this manner, and we have not had any that have gone more than 50 feet. But occasionally, I don't know exactly where the bedrock or the refusal will hit in the Stranger Creek bottoms. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a locked-in price for that. And so there was no unknown variable cost that they could charge us an arbitrary amount for as a change order.
We've never had any on like these small jobs like that and go over. We always cut piling off. Of course, we didn't have a diesel pile driver either.
Yep.
Commissioner Culberson, do you have any?
I just wanted to say, we talked about a triage list for bridges. We're going to have to start deciding which ones we're going to replace and which ones we're going to start closing because we are out of money. This one, we can't close this one. It's on a dead end that has 4 or 5 houses, like Bill said, so they have to have this bridge. But we are going to, like I said, start closing bridges that are absolutely not necessary. The other thing I wanted to add is I think this is maybe not the last wooden deck bridge, but it's one of them. And the biggest problem with this one is it causes a lot of flat tires. The nails keep
Come up.
working themselves up, and all the people that live across this bridge have told me for years they constantly get flat tires from that bridge. So that'd be a big fix.
The only other option is a couple railroad cars, flattened cars. But I think it'd cost you just as much. Time you engineer it and do it.
Probably would.
Buy the cars. And
Yep. We have previously looked at those, and you have to have them designed for load rating, and cost comes out. Actually, it was higher in the past. I haven't priced both options in the past 5 years probably, but previously 5 years ago or 6 years ago, we priced several options, and that was more expensive at that time.
this is a bridge that's been kicked down the road. because of the situation.
Okay,
Okay. I'm already.
Jeff?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the construction contract with Reese Construction for the replacement of Bridge A60 in the amount not to exceed $325,000
Second.
After contingency of the pile.
after contingency of pile planks.
Second
Motion
again.
is second. Okay, I'll begin voting with myself. Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Stevens. I vote aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Now, let's see. We need to consider a motion to approve a moratorium of understanding clarifying and granting all duties, including but not limited to administrative, fiscal, reporting, management, and maintenance relative to the award of Kansas Base Grant 2.0 to the City of Lansing.
Great. Commissioners, thank you for the time this morning. This MOU is really a matter of cleanup, if you will. In January of 2022, the state brought forth an opportunity for communities and some businesses to apply for base grants, and that is building a stronger economy. I believe the state had roughly $100 million to divvy out. The city of Lansing came to us and said, hey, could you partner with us and provide some matching dollars to pursue a sanitary sewer extension through a large amount of property at McIntyre Road and K7. We did. We put the grant together. I actually assembled it with assistance from Tim Vandal and his team at Lansing. We were not awarded that grant. So as time went on, we did not know. We thought that was all the base grant funding that was going to be available. Toward the end of 2022, the state identified that a number of their award winners were not going to be able to fulfill what they had won. So they put it out for Base Grant 2.0 with the funds that were not utilized through the first round. However, at that time, the county had already reallocated what we were going to offer supportive funds for the Lansing project. So Lansing went at it by themselves. I provided all our documentation that I had submitted to the state to the city of Lansing. They took that, they modified it, they put in new numbers and who's responsible and who's not, and the county had no part of that. They won the grant. They won their grant for that, and that was January of this year, 2023. But somehow in the system of grants and the electronic system, it still had the county of Leavenworth as the award winner. As soon as we were awarded a grant that we did not apply for, we contacted the state, as did the city of Lansing, and said, hey, no, Lansing is the applicant, not the county. The individual who was overseeing grants at the time, or this particular selection of grants at the time, said, not a problem, we'll make the edit and we'll get it all fixed and everything's good to go. Time has gone on, that person no longer operates that program, a new person operates the program and wants to know why in the heck the county won a project that is not their own. So the state has directed us that if we create this MOU that's before you today that essentially says the county has nothing to do with this project, that Lansing is operating, managing, maintaining, and doing all the things that it's supposed to do to fulfill this grant, that everything will be just great in the state system.
You're just cleaning up
That
the
is
language.
what's before you today. Basically says we have no role in this
Yep.
in this program. All authority goes to the city of Lansing. We're not contributing any funds to it. We have, however, just in case there's another notation somewhere in the state system, we have asked to be added as an also insured in their contract documents and whatnot. But essentially, this says that we have nothing to do with
Clean it
this
up.
particular grant.
Mr. Vandal, are you all good with all of this as well?
Morning, Tim.
This is Commissioner Steve. I have a question.
Yes.
And this might be for Mark or for Bill. This doesn't impact our ability to achieve any kind of future base grants or impact that in any way.
No, this does not impact anything.
Okay, that's what I want to get on there. Thanks.
Great.
Actually, it should help us.
Right, come
Yeah,
on now.
open it up. Yeah.
I'll just say, yeah, the city's happy with this. Tom's summary was perfect. I had submitted a request for disbursement to the state, and there was a new employee who hadn't been dealing with this. The gentleman that Tom had spoken to, the gentleman that I had spoken to, wasn't with the state anymore. So I submitted a request for disbursement, and she said, Why is the city of Lansing requesting this money when the title says Leavenworth County? So this was the Department of Commerce's suggestion. The city's been operating under the assumption anyway that we're covering 100% of the match.
Right.
So you guys have something on your agenda that says you don't have to pay anything. So I hope you guys are happy about that. I do want to really thank Tom. Tom's been incredibly helpful throughout this process. And also just getting this MOU turned around in a timely manner, because the state had just told me this a few weeks ago. So I appreciate Mark and David and Tom getting this turned around quickly.
Okay, just was giving you an opportunity to say that this is, and congratulations to the city of Lansing on receiving the funding in 2.0.
Absolutely.
We're excited. It's,
yeah.
When you think about the improvements that were made to McIntyre Road, sewer is going to get to McIntyre
Right.
Road. So it's going to make a lot of those properties a lot more.
Sure, it's great. Okay.
It's unfortunate it wasn't approved in the first round.
Yeah, and then somebody had to come out and return theirs because they weren't ready for it. Should have been shovel ready instead of having us go through. Yeah, and that's a disappointment. I was disappointed we didn't get it anyway, but anyway, we ready to make the Okay, and make a motion. Make a motion to approve memorandum understanding, clarifying and granting all duties, including but not limited to administrative, fiscal, reporting, management, and maintenance relative to the award of Kansas Base Grant 2.0 to the City of Lansing.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'll begin voting with myself. Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
I vote aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Good to see you again, Tim.
Okay. Now, we need to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2023-36, committing the application of all funds received by the county through the provision of KSA 79-2959 as amended to the reduction of the local ad valorem taxes.
Commissioners, I think this is just the follow-up to last week's meeting again, where you're formalizing a motion you made earlier in the year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to reiterate, this is an actual county resolution that says the county will use the LAVTR funds when and if the state reimburses those 100% to reduce property taxes. Because it's been said that the county might not use them for LAVTR. So this says that
I don't know what else you could use it for, but
even though Kansas statute specifically
in the statute
that
itself,
you can't get the funds unless you use it for that.
Yes, so
Pass
even
a resolution that says we will follow the law.
yes,
Other people should follow us.
Even though this seems
we're already
redundant.
following the law, and I think that we already had a vote of the formal vote of the Board of County Commissioners in meetings, but
We just had that
now
resolution.
we're
That's it. Yeah.
So is that,
reaffirming. Okay,
somebody want to make that motion?
You ready for a motion?
you ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-36, committing the application of all funds received by the county through the provisions of KSE 79-2959 as amended to the reduction of local ad valorem taxes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Begin voting with myself. Aye.
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 And aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go down to additional public comment. Mr. Clamp? It's your turn.
Very interesting. I was just speaking with Lansing. Did they thank the landowners, because the landowners gave some land away so they could put that sewer in. That was very nice. So, do mine. I hate when he records me. I had down for 2 minutes, so I was told I had 3 minutes, and if I'd known what you were going to talk about at first, I could have talked on that and then talked, so I would have had, how many minutes you give on the first one?
5.
We'll give you 5.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I won't need that, but that's all right. I'm going to start it right there. There we go. Today I'll be Louis Clem, and I live in Leavenworth, Kansas, at 1816 Pine Ridge Drive. That isn't where I lived when I was a kid. But, I was a poor kid, so I know what life's about. I want to thank you for allowing this to be dissertated here. It's about about three subjects here. The first one is the county museums. I had previously talked to the county commissioner on that the county should establish a museum committee to help Leavenworth County with its hidden super business history. We have more history than anybody else in Kansas, and we just don't do anything with it. That's a shame. We just had a notice in the paper. The Lansing Historical Group is trying to give tours of the old prison. Hopefully the state will approve, and the state elected need to help with this process. Next item was taxes. Now, if I'd known what you were going to talk about first, I would have said, well, that's what I'm going to talk about. Local ad valorem tax reduction fund. Our state elected need to be told, not asked, because one of our elected officials said, this is one of the things that we will take a look at. What are you talking about, taking a look at? See, that's a no-no. You need to be telling them that you're going to work with the voters to get them out of there if they can't get you the funds. But for some reason, that doesn't seem to be a great issue. But I've never met this guy that has the article in the paper, Limestone, said we had $2.8 billion in the bank, state, and they have $1.7 billion in a rainy day fund. What kind of actually, they're both rainy day funds. So that's talking about 4.5 billion. My God, isn't that money? I would think so. The next is a new Centennial Bridge. They say $250 million. Anybody believes that needs to go through grade school again, because we know it's not going to be $250 million. I got a hold of Missouri after I went to one of the dissertations up at the city on the bridge, and I talked to the state. We used to have a chaplain who had been on the county board for the roads and bridges in Missouri, and he was on there, I think, around 50 years. Nothing was ever done because there's no politicians over there in western Missouri. And that's what life is sort of about sometimes. But they said nothing will be four-lane, that's 92 or 45, in the next 15 to 20 years as far as you know. Now we're going to put in a four-lane bridge. In the process of putting in a four-lane bridge, will they do the roundabout? I don't know how Kansans go over there, especially out of Leavenworth. They can't handle the roundabout bridge or roads. But it's interesting that, I don't know if they're going to change that, but then it will be a one-lane road going each way after the four-lane. Now, when I worked on, anybody here worked on the toll bridge? Well, you can't answer those questions because you don't answer questions. Well, one of your local barbers and myself, we worked on the toll bridge, and sometimes we'd go down and work with the city to help them balance the books and do everything they have to do. Well, it cost 25 cents. Now, if you were a business in town, you could buy books of tickets. Times have changed. Now they have a little bar there, a little cable. And it calculates everything. So all businesses gave 2 tickets. That was Ulster, Bruggen's, Bacon's. You can go on. None of those are here anymore. That's a shame. But one of the things that happened was they would give you 2 tickets if you came over from Weston, so you could go home and you could come back to Leavenworth. Wasn't that a nice thing to do? Sure was. This leads to the topic that really should be being used for property tax. We used to use that money for repairing the bridge, and every access road that led into Metropolitan. I couldn't do the whole road all the way back to city limits on the south, but you could do where it intersected. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that could be done with money that could be raised. In 1966, I knew a Navy lieutenant. That was me, what? Yeah, I made 10,000 gross. 10,000 gross, that base pay, flight pay, you name it. 4788, which was from World War I, that was subsistence, that was for food. That was a big bracket there. But today, that Navy lieutenant would make $115,000 to $120,000. Now, surely that guy, or the colonel who makes $144,000, or the general who makes $189,000, surely they could afford to pay crossing that bridge because they live over there. And just like the mayor of Kansas City, he said, we are paying out so much money, but none of it is coming back into the city. Is that mine or is that?
That was ours.
Okay. That we're going to go bankrupt. There ought to be a tab on that bridge. There was 4 different figures that I ran into. One was 12,796 across the bridge every day. That's we bring in for a year, roughly 4.6 million. 14,000 was another figure. That's 5.1 million. 14,300. That's 5,200,000, and 16.3 was 5,949,000. So call it 6 million. I bet you those funds can be used for property tax. And I think the county needs to approach the city and say, let's look into doing this because we have Kansas community down in. We really don't have any businesses that sell clothes. It's a shame. It's been a depreciation of life. It's nice to have been born in 1938 and to know what went on in this community in the 30s, 40s, during the war, and where we're going now by the leaks we have in all places. So, what I'm going to leave you, this is I didn't make 5 copies, trying to save some trees, and let the taxpayer pay if anybody wants it, but they can read it. This is the documentation of how many toll bridges there are in the world, and how many here in the United States, and what they charge.
Okay.
Because that is something that needs to be being done, and we need to approach the city to get it done. I think that's it, except
Thank you, Louis. We've got
one last thing, because I always have to give myself a bad mood. It's not a bad mood today, but I'm sure somebody here has been to China. Probably not. Some of you have been to Israel, probably not. Nobody here I know has been to Russia. So it's been an interesting life. So I'm going to leave this with
Thank
one
you.
of these gentlemen over here.
Happy to accept.
Thank you.
I'll consider it a Christmas gift.
Thank you very much. Yep, you want to do that. Don't want to forget it.
Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Louis. Louis, didn't that bridge start out as a dime instead of a quarter?
Inflation.
Didn't that bridge, when it was first opened, wasn't it a dime, not a quarter?
Well, I worked it in 1956 and
It was a quarter? I thought it was a dime.
It used to be a dime to come off.
I wasn't born yet, don't get me wrong.
Doug?
Okay.
Researching the history of it.
It used to be a dime to come off 70 to come towards Lansing and Leavenworth until they stopped that years ago.
Okay, well,
Okay.
thank you. Let's
Thank you.
go on to presentations and discussions. Do you have anything to share
No, I
today?
just attended the Road and Bridge Christmas dinner. I was unable to attend the March meeting yesterday, so Commissioner Culberson took that one forward.
Commissioner Stephen, do you have anything to share?
Well, I can share with you that the Esther play at the Town Theater is spectacular. So if you get to come down to Cranston, it's great.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to wish you all Merry Christmas. I'm going to drop off. So,
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you. Commissioner Culberson?
I just had the Mark meeting Doug was talking about, and we've got several presentations set up from the letters and phone calls that we had got about the LAVTR. So a couple places like Falcon Lakes HOA, Westside Church, I've got scheduled presentations over the next couple weeks to go there and talk to their members about pilot checks, LAVTR, high taxes, et cetera, et cetera.
Jeff, if you ever want anybody to tag along, just let me know.
Okay. That's about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to wish everybody Merry Christmas. That's all I have.
Okay, and then, let's see, last week I attended the LCDC meeting, and then here, as soon as I'm finished here, I will be participating in the Transit Authority meeting. And to that, I would also...
Big meeting today, isn't it? About adding fees back on?
I'm not sure if that's going to be... there was a study that's conducted to look at whether or not and what the ramifications of re-implementing the no fee, but that decision has not been made because there needs to be continued conversation with Kansas City, Missouri. But the bottom line is that they're not collecting fees is negatively impacting the budgets of the Transit Authority, and it was easy to do during the COVID period of time because COVID relief funds were able to be used to make the no fare available to the people. But that money is drying up and will no longer be available, so there needs to be plans in place, and plans are being made to figure out how to balance the budget for the Transit Authority. And there won't be a decision made today, but there will be a presentation. So there's a Zoom link if anybody's interested. You can go to Transit KCATA website and link to the meeting, and we'll observe it if you'd like to log on to Zoom. So, but that's all I have, and I would also like to wish individuals a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, all of the different celebrations that take place during this season of joy and peace. And we will see you next week.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. Begin with me. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, gentlemen.